The night on Coruscant was particularly silent when Darth Plagueis infiltrated the upper levels of the city planet. His eyes fixed on the residence of House Valorum. The Sith Lord had sensed something extraordinary, an intense presence in the Force. Within that mansion slept a child of only 7 years, completely unaware of the power that dwelt within him. Plagueis did not hesitate. With precise movements and using Sith concealment techniques, he entered the boy's room and took him into the shadows, leaving only emptiness and the despair of a shattered family. It was all so clean and quick that not even the most advanced security sensors detected the intrusion, as if a ghost had visited that place. In the following years, in his secret laboratory, Plagueis molded young Valorum like a craftsman molds his masterpiece. The boy demonstrated exceptional aptitude for manipulating the Force, absorbing teachings about the dark side with a speed that impressed even his master. Plagueis taught him to channel anger without being consumed by it, to use pain as fuel, and to see through the lies of the Republic and the Jedi. The training was brutal, involving hours of forced meditation, simulated combat against droids, and mental manipulation exercises on living creatures. Valorum learned quickly, but something within him resisted. While he absorbed Sith knowledge, a part of his consciousness remained trapped in fragmented memories of his family, in the distant voice of his mother singing lullabies from Coruscant. This internal duality created a conflict that Plagueis could not fully perceive, a mistake that would cost the Sith Lord dearly. At 12 years old, Valorum executed his escape on a stormy night. Plagueis had left for secret meetings with bankers from the intergalactic banking clan, leaving only security droids. The young apprentice used everything he had learned against his captor, sabotaging the power systems, creating illusions in the Force to confuse the sensors, and finally stealing a small escape ship. As the wind howled through the mountains, Valorum piloted the ship with surprising skill, using the Force to guide him through the storm. His heart beat strongly, not just from fear of being captured, but from the anticipation of finally returning home. When the lights of Coruscant appeared on the horizon, tears rolled down his face. He had survived hell and was about to be reborn, but he carried with him dark secrets that would shape the galaxy's destiny in unimaginable ways. Upon his return to House Valorum, he was received as a miracle. His family, which had spent 5 years in mourning and despair, could hardly believe the boy was alive. Republic authorities interrogated young Valorum extensively, but he told only half-truths, claiming to have been kidnapped by pirates who held him captive before he managed to escape. He omitted any mention of Darth Plagueis or Sith training, instinctively understanding that such a revelation would transform him into a pariah or worse. His family, too relieved to question deeply, accepted the story and invested in therapies and tutors to help the boy reintegrate into society. But at night, when everyone slept, Valorum practiced Sith meditation exercises, refining his abilities in secret, building mental walls so strong that not even the most powerful Jedi could easily penetrate them. He had decided to use the dark knowledge not to destroy, but to protect himself and perhaps, at some point, for something greater. As he grew, Valorum developed an impeccable public persona as a dedicated politician and skilled diplomat, while secretly cultivating his power in the Force. He became fascinated by the idea of balancing light and darkness, a heresy for both Jedi and Sith. During his senatorial duties, he frequently visited the Jedi Temple under the pretext of diplomatic consultations, but actually observed their methods, studied their holocrons when possible, and eventually developed a genuine friendship with Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. Qui-Gon, known for his unorthodox views of the Force, found in Valorum a fascinating interlocutor for philosophical discussions about the living Force. What the Jedi did not perceive was that each conversation fed Valorum's hybrid knowledge, allowing him to merge Jedi techniques with Sith fundamentals in ways that had never been attempted. Valorum was becoming something new, something dangerous and perhaps necessary. When Chief Palpatine arrived at the Galactic Senate as representative of Naboo, Valorum, already an established senator, observed the newcomer with calculated interest. There was something about the senator from Naboo that resonated strangely, a familiar vibration that Valorum could not immediately identify. The two politicians met for the first time at a diplomatic event in the Senate district, exchanging appropriate courtesies and discussing trade issues with expected superficiality. Palpatine was charming, articulate, and demonstrated a surprising understanding of the Republic's bureaucratic complexities. Valorum kept his mental defenses at maximum, feeling something was wrong but unable to determine exactly what. During the following weeks, they collaborated on various legislative projects, developing a cordial professional relationship. Neither revealed their true natures, both supreme masters of dissimulation, dancing a waltz of lies that would be comical if it weren't so dangerous for the galaxy's destiny. Valorum's rise to the position of Supreme Chancellor opened doors he had never imagined possible. With access to the Republic's most secret files and special privileges at the Jedi Temple, he intensified his clandestine studies of the Force. Late at night, in his private quarters at the Executive Palace, Valorum practiced advanced techniques, merging Sith knowledge of Force lightning manipulation with Jedi techniques of mental clarity and connection to the living Force. The results were extraordinary. He developed the ability to read people with frightening precision, to influence minds without detection, and to fight with a lightsaber in ways that would confound both Jedi and Sith. His lightsaber, hidden in a secret compartment behind panels in his office, possessed a red blade, but he had learned to modulate his Force signature so it would appear neutral or even slightly luminous when necessary. It was the perfect disguise, maintained through iron discipline and justified paranoia. The Naboo crisis brought Palpatine and Valorum to an inevitable collision. When Queen Amidala appeared before the Senate, pleading for intervention against the Trade Federation invasion, Valorum genuinely wanted to help. But Palpatine, manipulating events behind the scenes, orchestrated the bureaucratic blockade that would make any immediate action impossible. During the fateful senatorial session, Valorum felt something changing in the Force, a subtle but unmistakable disturbance emanating from Palpatine. It was when the senator from Naboo suggested the vote of no confidence that Valorum truly realized. Palpatine's eyes gleamed for a fraction of a second with an intensity that Valorum immediately recognized, for he had seen that same gleam in Darth Plagueis' eyes so many years ago. The Supreme Chancellor maintained his external composure, but internally his world had turned upside down. Palpatine was not just an ambitious politician. He was a practitioner of the dark side, possibly even a Sith. The debate that followed was a battle of wills fought not with lightsabers but with carefully chosen words and subtle political maneuvers. Valorum countered each of Palpatine's arguments with surgical precision, using his combined knowledge of Jedi and Sith techniques to influence key senators through almost imperceptible mental suggestions. For a moment, it seemed he might reverse the tide. But Palpatine was a consummate master, and his network of influence in the Republic was far more extensive than Valorum had estimated. The vote of no confidence was approved, and Valorum watched his chancellorship crumble in a matter of hours. As he left the Senate building for the last time as chancellor, he crossed paths with Palpatine in the corridors. The two men stared at each other for an eternal moment, and in their eyes occurred a silent communication. Palpatine knew that Valorum had discovered something, and Valorum knew that Palpatine was too dangerous to be confronted openly at that moment. The war between them had only just begun. When news arrived about the death of Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo, killed by a Sith warrior identified as Darth Maul, something inside Valorum broke. His friend was dead, and he had absolute certainty of who was ultimately responsible. Palpatine was the Sith Master, and the time had come to act. Valorum's infiltration of the Executive Palace was meticulously planned. When he finally reached the door to Palpatine's office, he paused for a moment, sensing through the Force. The new Chancellor was there, alone, working on documents by the light of a single lamp. Valorum took a deep breath, centering himself, and then activated his lightsaber. The red blade illuminated the dark corridor with a sinister glow as he entered the office without knocking. Palpatine looked up from the documents, and for a brief instant, genuine surprise crossed his face before being replaced by a cold smile. "Ah, former Chancellor Valorum," he said with a soft and dangerous voice. "I imagined you would eventually come, although I must admit I didn't expect this direct approach." Valorum pointed his saber at Palpatine, maintaining respectful distance. "You killed my friend, Palpatine. Qui-Gon Jinn died because you sent your apprentice to Naboo. You are the Sith Lord who has been manipulating the galaxy." Palpatine rose slowly, his hands visible and apparently harmless. Interesting accusation. And tell me, Valorum, how would a respected senator reach such conclusions? Unless you yourself have knowledge about the Sith that you shouldn't possess. The implication hung in the air between them like a blade. Valorum tightened his fist on his saber's hilt. Darth Plagueis trained me as a child. I escaped from him, and I recognize his signature in you. You're his apprentice, aren't you? The successor he chose after my escape. The revelation seemed to genuinely surprise Palpatine this time. His eyes narrowed as he reassessed the man before him. So the rumors were true. Plagueis once mentioned a lost apprentice, but I assumed it was just the fantasy of a dying old man. Fascinating. And you survived all this time, hiding your true nature even from me. He began to circle his desk slowly. This explains much about your actions as Chancellor, the decisions you made that seemed surprisingly astute. Tell me, Valorum, if you were trained by Plagueis, why do you serve the Republic? Why didn't you claim your rightful place alongside the Sith? Valorum kept his saber pointed at the Chancellor as he moved. Because I chose a different path. You and Plagueis see power as domination. I see power as responsibility. And I won't allow you to destroy the galaxy. Palpatine laughed, a dry and cruel sound. How noble, but naive. Do you really think you can stop me? The confrontation exploded at superhuman speed. Palpatine revealed his own lightsaber, a red blade that hummed to life, and attacked with calculated fury. Valorum defended himself with Form 2, the same that Plagueis had taught him, but modified with elements of Form 4 that he had observed Qui-Gon use. The two disguised Sith danced through the office, their sabers creating patterns of red light as expensive furniture was destroyed around them. Palpatine was surprisingly skilled, his movements economical and lethal, each attack aimed at vital points. But Valorum had something Palpatine didn't expect: the fusion of Jedi and Sith knowledge that created a completely unique combat style. He could anticipate attacks through the living force in Jedi style while counterattacking with pure Sith aggression. For long minutes, they were equal, neither achieving decisive advantage. Then Valorum saw his opening. Using a trick that Qui-Gon had casually shown him years ago, he feigned a high attack but spun low, his blade cutting Palpatine's thigh. Palpatine staggered, and Valorum pressed his advantage, forcing the Chancellor against the wall. Their sabers crossed inches from Palpatine's face, the intensity of the heat making the air ripple between them. "It's over, Sidious," Valorum hissed, using the Sith name he had deduced. "You're going to answer for your crimes." But Palpatine, even wounded, smiled. "You think so?" He suddenly shouted, "Guards! Assassin! Help me!" Valorum realized his mistake too late. The office door exploded open and Senate guards burst in, blasters in hand. They saw former Chancellor Valorum with a red lightsaber threatening the current Chancellor and didn't hesitate. Blaster fire crossed the office. Valorum had to retreat, deflecting the shots with his saber while searching for an exit. He managed to disarm some guards using the Force, but more kept arriving. Palpatine, demonstrating award-worthy acting skills, staggered back like a frightened victim. "He tried to kill me. The former Chancellor is a Sith." Valorum knew he had no choice. Continuing to fight meant killing innocent guards or being killed. He used a Force push to create space and leaped through the panoramic window, falling into the Coruscant night as glass rained around him. The following years were bitter for Valorum. He lived in the lower depths of Coruscant, in levels where even starlight never reached, surviving through occasional odd jobs and using the Force to keep himself hidden. The entire Republic was searching for him, labeled as the true Sith Lord behind the Naboo invasion and the growing tensions that would lead to the Clone Wars. Palpatine had executed the perfect coup, transforming his accuser into the accused, deflecting all suspicion from himself while consolidating even more power. Valorum watched from afar through stolen transmissions as the galaxy plunged into war, as the Jedi were sent to die on endless battlefields, and as Palpatine became more powerful each day. Frustration and anger grew within him, the dark side whispering that he should have killed Palpatine when he had the chance. Innocence be damned. But now he needed to wait, observe, and find the right moment to act again. The final call came during the final events of the Clone Wars. Valorum felt a massive disturbance in the Force, a wave of pain, fear, and dark power emanating from the Jedi Temple. He knew with absolute certainty that Palpatine was making his final move. Without hesitation, he infiltrated back into Coruscant proper, using stolen holomorphic disguises and Force concealment techniques refined by years of practice. He blended among senators in the Senate building, watching as apocalyptic events unfolded. There was a young Jedi, Anakin Skywalker, whose Force signature shone with frightening intensity. Valorum had heard rumors about the supposed Chosen One, and now, watching him from afar, he could feel the raw potential and internal conflict tearing the young man to pieces. When Anakin left the Senate building with a tormented expression, heading to the Jedi Temple, Valorum followed him, keeping safe distance, a ghost watching the unfolding of destiny. Valorum infiltrated the Jedi Temple with disturbing ease. He followed Anakin from afar through the sacred corridors, sensing the growing darkness within the young Jedi, watching as Anakin clearly struggled with some monumental decision. When Anakin found Master Windu and revealed he was going to confront the Chancellor, Valorum activated a listening device he had prepared, tuning it to Windu's communicator frequency. He heard the crucial conversation where Anakin accused Palpatine of being the Sith Lord. Windu's response surprised him. "Isn't it Valorum?" The bitterness of the false accusation still hurt after all these years, but there was no time for emotions. Windu ordered Anakin to remain at the temple while he took other masters to arrest the Chancellor. Valorum made his decision instantly. When Anakin left the council chamber, clearly distressed and not following orders, Valorum followed him in silence. The journey back to the executive palace was tense. Valorum stayed in the shadows as Anakin sped through Coruscant in his speeder, the Force screaming with premonitions of imminent disaster. He could feel the struggle high in the building, the intensity of the battle between Windu and Palpatine echoing through the Force like a storm. When Anakin arrived and ran upstairs, Valorum was right behind, invisible, his lightsaber still deactivated but ready in his hand. He reached the antechamber of Palpatine's office and observed through a crack in the door. 3 Jedi Masters lay dead. Windu had Palpatine cornered, saber raised for the final blow. And then Anakin entered, shouting for Windu not to do it. Valorum felt the pivotal moment, the instant where the galaxy would tip toward light or darkness. He saw Anakin move, his saber rising to cut Windu's hand. And Valorum acted, exploding through the door at Force-maximized speed. Valorum's red blade intercepted Anakin's saber inches before it reached Windu's wrist, and with a fluid movement, he spun and cut off Anakin's right hand. Young Skywalker screamed in pain and shock, falling back while holding the cauterized stump. Windu turned instantly, saber raised defensively, preparing to face this new threat. His eyes widened upon recognizing the face that the Republic had hunted for years. "Valorum!" he exclaimed, positioning himself between the former Chancellor and Palpatine. But before anyone could act, Valorum extended his free hand and released a massive Force push that hurled Windu backward, making him fall heavily several meters away. The Jedi Master, stunned but still conscious, tried to get up as Valorum turned to Palpatine. The false Chancellor, still feigning weakness, looked at his former rival with a mixture of surprise and calculation. "You?" he hissed. Valorum did not respond with words. Instead, he raised both hands and released Force lightning with intensity that made Palpatine's eyes widen. The power that Valorum demonstrated at that moment was something not even Palpatine had foreseen. The lightning that came from his hands was an intense blue-white, not the typical purple-red of the Sith, a manifestation of the unique fusion of techniques he had developed. Palpatine tried to counter with his own lightning, pure Sith lightning charged with pure hatred and dark side power. For a moment, the two forces collided in the air between them, creating a crackling sphere of energy that illuminated the entire office with blinding light. He advanced, step by step, his lightning pushing Palpatine's back, his will dominating the others. Palpatine, for the first time in years, felt something close to real fear. He intensified his attack, pouring all his power, but it wasn't enough. Valorum's lightning penetrated his defenses, enveloping him in electric agony. Palpatine's scream echoed through the walls as he fell to his knees, his disguise as a harmless old man literally burning under the relentless assault. Palpatine desperately tried to deflect the attack, but his hands trembled uncontrollably under the energy bombardment. With a final cry of effort, he concentrated all his power into one last devastating attack. The lightning intensified until they became almost solid, a column of pure force energy that completely enveloped Palpatine. The Sith Lord's body convulsed violently, his skin darkening and cracking under the heat and power. And then, with one last cut-off scream, Darth Sidious, the architect of the Clone Wars and destroyer of the Jedi, died, his body collapsing on the floor. The silence that followed was deafening. Valorum deactivated his lightning, his hands trembling slightly from exhaustion. He had poured a monumental amount of energy into that final attack, more than he had used at any moment in his life. Behind him, Windu reactivated his lightsaber and pointed it at Valorum. The Jedi Master seemed torn between gratitude for salvation and horror at what he had just witnessed. Anakin was still on the floor, holding his wrist and looking between Valorum and Palpatine's body with an expression of absolute shock. Valorum turned slowly to face Windu, keeping his hands visible and non-threatening. Windu tightened his grip on his saber. "So you yourself are a Sith. You have a red saber. You use Force lightning. You're wanted by the Republic." Valorum sighed deeply, feeling the weight of years of solitude and secrecy. With deliberate and slow movements, Valorum deactivated his lightsaber and threw it across the office, making it slide until it stopped at Windu's feet. The Jedi Master looked at the weapon confused. Valorum met Windu's eyes with a firm and fearless gaze. "I am not your enemy, Master Windu," he said with a calm voice but loaded with conviction. "Not every Sith becomes a monster. I have no crimes beyond having been trained against my will as a child and having defended my life when falsely accused. I ask that you take me to trial. Let the Republic and the Senate decide my fate, not the circumstances of a hasty confrontation." Windu looked at the saber at his feet, then at Valorum, then at Palpatine's body. Windu lowered his saber slowly, but did not deactivate it. "You will surrender peacefully? Will you cooperate fully with interrogations? Will you submit to the judgment of the Jedi Council and the Senate?" Valorum nodded. "Completely. I have spent years in the shadows, Master Windu. I am tired of hiding. Let the truth finally come to light, whatever the cost." In the days that followed, the galaxy was shaken by revelations that rewrote the understanding of the entire war. Valorum was kept in a special detention cell at the Jedi Temple but cooperated fully with interrogators. Valorum's trial before the Galactic Senate was broadcast to billions of systems. Senators who had condemned him years ago now heard the complete truth. After 3 days of deliberation, the Senate pronounced its verdict: complete absolution of all charges. More than that, they recognized that Valorum had been a victim of a Sith conspiracy and that his actions, though unconventional, had been essential to saving the Republic. The following years saw dramatic changes in both the Republic and Valorum. The Jedi Order underwent a profound reevaluation of its doctrines, particularly its views on the dark side and attachment. Anakin Skywalker, saved from the fall but marked by the experience, became one of the most vocal defenders of reform. His friendship with Valorum, born in the ashes of the confrontation in Palpatine's office, grew strong. The two men, each having faced the temptation of darkness in different ways, found mutual understanding that transcended words. Valorum, in turn, dedicated himself to helping rebuild the Republic devastated by war. His experience and unique abilities made him a valuable consultant. When new elections were called 2 years after Palpatine's fall, multiple sectors nominated him as a candidate. His second term as Chancellor was marked by bold reforms and careful attention to the balance of power that had been lacking in the previous Republic. Valorum implemented systems of checks and balances to prevent another Sith from infiltrating Republican institutions so easily. The friendship between Valorum and Anakin became legendary. Anakin, who had never fully embraced orthodox Jedi teachings, found in Valorum a mentor who understood the internal struggle between light and darkness. When Anakin was eventually elevated to Grand Master of the Order after Yoda's death, one of his first actions was to establish formal collaboration with Valorum to study the nature of Force balance. Together, they began to develop new Jedi training methods that recognized that emotions were not enemies but forces that needed to be understood and integrated, not suppressed. "You saved more than my life that day," Anakin told Valorum during a ceremony marking 20 years since Palpatine's fall. "You saved my soul, and showed me there is more than one path to walk in the light." Valorum smiled, something rare for the usually serious former Chancellor. "And you showed me that it's worth fighting for good, even when the path is difficult and lonely. We are products of our choices, Anakin, not of our training or circumstances." Valorum's legacy shaped the galaxy for generations. The new Jedi Order that emerged under Anakin's leadership incorporated many of his philosophies about balance, creating a more compassionate and less dogmatic order. But above all, he was remembered as the man who proved that our choices define who we are, not our past or training. And in that legacy, he found an immortality that no Sith power could grant.